Okay, hi again from inside your computer. We are going to start on the door project today. So the door project is going to take all the stuff that we've been learning about basic tools, and we're going to now apply it to something with a more real-world context, which is we will be drafting a picture of a door. It might be this door that's in the paper. It might be one of these other two doors. You can choose your preferred level of difficulty depending on what you're up to. I'm going to do this one because it's the hardest of the three, and it's going to give you some tools that the other ones may not. The other ones are mostly living in a land of rectangles and offset tools, which is great, but mine will have some additional arc tool business that's probably worth it. So if you feel like you're at least up for the challenge, we can do this one together. So I did record this whole video and then my screen recorder deleted it. So I already have a file called Bartenstein Door Project that I created. And if I hit, let me get back in here. If I hit Command Z a couple times, oh look, I drew that whole thing. But we're going to go back to square one because it's a new day. And we're going to start from the beginning. You will not bring your picture into your Vectorworks file. That's a do as I say, not as I do. You will use your scale rule and measure it on this piece of paper to find the dimensions of the object. So I took photos, I scaled them to be approximately full-size doors in half-inch scale. You'll remember your scale rule and you'll half-inch scale your way around this drawing in order to create the comparable drafting in Vectorworks. So that will be our next project. All right, let's draw this door. The first thing you're going to want to do is take some measurements. And I'm going to do this in Vectorworks so you can see what I'm doing. You're going to do this on your piece of paper. So you're going to start by finding a measurement for the box that the whole door fits inside. Each of the doors that are examples has various trim around the outside edges, so it's not just the door. I want the lights, which is what we call the side windows on either side. I want a transom if there's a transom, and that's going to be true for each of these. They have a light on one side or lights on both sides. They might have a transom up above. I don't need the stonework, so you can stop at the edge of the painted door as you work your way around. So in this case, it's the edge of the wood. And in this case, I would go all the way to the outside edge of this white. And then maybe just make something up for that top piece so that it feels like we see all of the trim that's attached to the door, but not the walls. Okay? That's the boundaries of the project. So the first thing I'm going to do when I am figuring out how to draft something typically is going to be to create a box that the whole drawing will fit inside. So to do that, I'm going to take a measurement from, and I'm just going to eyeball it, the bottom to the very tippity top, 8'1", and then I'm going to take another measurement from left to right, 6'5". So I'm going to start by creating a rectangle that is that size. So I will just come down here to the bottom corner. I'm going to drag sort of up and to the right, and then I'm going to hit my tab key, and X is 6'5". Hit tab to get to the other one, and then 8'1". And for the inches, you do have to use like shift apostrophe so that you get the close parentheses. Otherwise, it gets confused. You can't do 1 apostrophe and it will be like, what's wrong with you? Use the inches of the world. Once I hit that tab button again, now I have two guides that have appeared so that when I click with my mouse button in this corner, it will lock it in and create that outside boundary rectangle. So that's great. Then I want to, in this case, figure out the height of this arc because that's going to be my next major boundary. I'm going to just take another quick measurement and I'm going to grab it from that corner down all the way to the bottom of the thing. That is 6'7". So I'm going to draw another rectangle inside my first rectangle. I'm going to snap to that bottom corner. So I'm going to wait until it highlights red. I'm going to hover over this bottom corner. It's going to highlight red also, so it's kind of snapping me to that edge. So that X is 6'5", which is what we would expect it to be. Then I'm going to hit tab until I get to the Y direction, and I'm going to say 6'7", tab, and click. And now I have a box that's creating a guide for me about the bottom edge of this arc. So part of the reason for that is the use of the arc tool, which is coming up next, and that will be utilizing those 2 points and then the tangent point on the top. So we're going to come over and grab our arc tool. It's keyboard shortcut 3, but I never use keyboard shortcut 3. It's going to automatically populate itself in this mode, in the radius mode, where you draw a radius line and then move the mouse to draw the arc, and then you click to complete. So what that looks like is I draw a radius and then I do a sweep, right? So that's one way to get an arc, a half circle or a circle. The other ways are over here, and I hit delete a couple times and it'll get me all the way back out of that tool. So each click before the thing is created, if I hit the delete key, it'll take me back a click and it'll take me all the way back where I started. I'm going to use this one here, the 3 points mode, and this is my favorite arc mode in general. So for this one, I'll just click here, then I will click in the top center, tangent to that top center, and now I'm creating an arc that snaps to those 3 places. Great. So now I have my bottom rectangle and my arc. I'm going to add those 2 together in order to get one continuous surface. And if I've played my cards right, all of these things I snapped to, so it'll all come together beautifully. If I say modify, add surface, I now have that one beautiful shape all together. I can delete this little rectangle that's sitting underneath it because I'm good. I'm inside the ballpark. So my next move is going to be to utilize the offset tool. And this is something we've done before. So I'll start by highlighting this guy. I'm going to actually take another measurement first though, because I don't know what this dimension is. So I would bust out my scale rule, right, and figure out what that height is going to be. So it's telling me 6 3/4. So I could choose 6 3/4 or I could choose 7 inches, and that either one would be fine. Let's go ahead and come to that 6 3/4 dimension. So we're going to grab my offset tool. I picked it up before I selected the thing I want to offset from. So if I hold the command key on my keyboard and then click, now I'm still got my offset tool, but I'm in the right spot. And then it was 6 3/4 and I deleted it, which was silly of me, but I remembered it because of my steel trap of a mind. So I can set that, I hit enter, and now if I click inside, I'm going to get that offset shape. Yeah, we should save it. Good idea. Thanks, Vectorworks. Thanks for saving a backup. I appreciate that. My next step is going to actually be to create, I want each of these panels to be separate, right? So I want a piece that goes all the way to the ground. I want these pieces that kind of do their thing, and then I'll put in this rectangle at the bottom. I think I'm going to start by double clicking and using the reshape, right, to drag this down to the bottom, because I can always put back in a rectangle that goes in between those 2 side panels. Then I'm going to hit my X key to get my selection tool back, and I'm going to select both of these shapes, and I'm going to go to modify, clip surface. So now I have an inside shape and I have an outside shape. The outside shape is the one I really care about. The inside shape I don't really need. I can hit delete, get rid of that inside shape. I'm going to come in real quick and figure out what this bottom measurement should be using my scale rule in real life or my dimension tool in Vectorworks, 5 inches. Great. So now if I come in here, I start with a click, I come across until it snaps, I hit tab, right? Start dragging up and I say 5 inches. Snap. Okay, great. So I click again to accept that dimension that is snapped in the correct spot. The last thing I want to do is sort of separate these. I want each of these segments to be their own piece on this top arc. So I'm going to come in with just the line tool. I'm going to connect those 2 lines, hit my X key, select those 2 parts, and then use clip surface to separate them from each other. So if I hit the delete, I then don't even need that line that was in between, right? I have this beautiful two vector shape situation. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Click, click, hold X key, right? Get back to my major cursor, hold shift, select both of those objects, and then come in and clip surface. And then I can delete that extra line. Oh my gosh, great. The next thing I need to do is to create these little vertical pieces. I'm not going to worry about the center quite as much. I'm going to start over here and work my way across. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to find this piece of trim first. So I'm going to measure from the outside edge all the way over here. Get that measurement, 1 foot, 0 5/8, so about 1.5. And then I'm going to come over here and get a measurement for that, 5/8. That doesn't seem right. That seems too small. We're going to make it an inch. I'm a designer. I'm going to be arbitrarily making this an inch. And we'll make this 1 foot, 0.5 inches. So arbitrarily make it an inch wide. I'm going to start by getting my rectangle tool out. I'm going to snap into this bottom corner. I'm going to make it nice and tall because I don't really know how tall I want it to be. My X dimension is 1 inch because I decided that arbitrarily, and my Y dimension is just, you know, tall-ish. Okay, I'm already snapped into this corner, so now if I do a move command and I move it over an inch or 1 foot and 1/2 inch, it should be in the place that I want. So Command M, my X offset, 1 foot, 1/2, and then this, no Y offset, and then I hit OK, and now I'm in the place that I want it to be. So I'm snapped into everything. I don't really want it to be this tall. I want it to kind of fit underneath. So I'm just going to hold shift so that I don't accidentally change my left or right measurement while I have that shape that is the double arrows, so I'm reshaping it. So there I have a stick that kind of lands in the middle of this shape. If I come back in and I bring this shape send to the front, now it's on top of my other shape, so if I go in and I use, again, my favorite clip surface, it'll trim off that hiding underneath part, which is what I was hoping for. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to use, if you remember that combine into surface tool that we used, I'm going to select all of these objects. I was holding down Option as I was dragging so that it was picking up everything I was touching instead of having to get really big and take in everything. So if I hold down Option, I can sort of slide over some stuff and get everything that I'm touching while I'm clicking and dragging to select. So now I have all of these pieces. I can come in and combine into surface. I'm going to get that little paintbrush tool and it's going to create that interior shape, right? That interior shape right there, which is what I was going for. Beautiful. Okay. So my next step, rather than doing all of this measuring again on the other side, I'm actually going to just mirror. I'm going to wait though and do that after I have finished drawing in all of these shapes. So I'm going to leave this here for now. I'm going to demonstrate for you on this center panel, and I'm going to let you figure out your lights and your side panels yourself. When you go through, I will ask that you delete out the holes where the windows are so that it's easy to tell in the drawing whether it's glass or not. So I want to use my mirror tool now because I want to just make symmetrical this door. So I'm going to pick up my 1 inch little panel piece. I'm going to just mirror it across. So remember our mirror tool is over here. I'm going to look and hover on top center of this bottom frame to create my mirror line. And then to make sure that I'm going straight up and down, I'm going to hold the shift key. And then when I click, it will mirror and copy it over to the other side. So now, and I'm back to my X key to get my cursor back. Now I'm going to select everything and build this center panel situation. So I do need to hold Option, otherwise I'm not going to pick up everything unless I'm all the way outside the whole shape. I'm going to come into Modify once again, combine into surface, and fill in that center piece. So as I look at this panel, there are several pieces, right? There's a bunch of different stuff going on. There seems to be a nice little piece of trim that kind of goes all the way around the whole outside. So I'm going to start with that, just doing it with the offset tool So we'll come back in, we'll just get a nice little 3/4 inch piece because I think it's not quite as big, like in its thickness, as this piece, right? It's like a little bit narrower. So we're just going to come in with a nice 3/4 inch offset tool piece of trim that goes all the way around. It's not really happening on the very bottom edge, so that may be a place that I do something different. Hard to say. Yeah, let's go ahead and take that all the way out on the bottom. So we're going to just go all the way and snap all the way down on the bottom. So I just picked up the center of that thing and I snapped it all the way down to the bottom. I do want these to be separate pieces. Right now they're just sitting on top of each other. So I'm going to shift and then select the piece behind it. So take that piece and this top piece. If I hold shift, I should be able to select them both, but I'm having a little bit of trouble. You and you. There we go. Now I can clip surface to separate them and to get that trim as its own separate piece. Beautiful. That was what I was hoping for. Okay, great. So my next move is going to be to create these inner panels. So I'll just grab my scale rule and measure the width of that trim going all the way around, 4 inches. Great. We're going to just go with that dimension. And I'm going to go ahead and pick up my offset tool again. Do this whole game we've been playing. I had to hold command in order to select it because I picked up the offset tool before I selected the thing I wanted to offset from. 4 inches, enter, click, great. And now we'll make some adjustments based on the various things, right? So I want to find this height for this little panel piece because I want to add that rectangle to the center to separate these two top and bottom panels. And then I also need to change this height of this bottom panel because it's much wider than the 4 inches that we have going around all the rest of the edges. So let's do the bottom panel first and then we'll bring this top piece in. So I'm going to measure again my bottom panel. Go like there, 7 3/8. That's pretty close to 7 1/2. So let's make it 7 1/2 from the very bottom edge. And I'm going to just create a rectangle as a guide, right? So this is not something that I'm actually keeping in the drawing. I'm just using it as a drawing aid. So we don't really care about the width, but we want it to be, what did I say? 7 3/8, 7 1/2. 7 1/2 felt right. 7.5, right? Nope, don't really care about that. Leave that alone. 7.5 on the height. Click. So now I have that rectangle as a guide, and I can come in here, double click to get the Reshape tool, pick this up from the center, hold shift to make sure that I'm not doing something wonky. I'm just going to hold shift to make sure I'm going straight up and down, and then I'm going to click at the top of that rectangle, and it's going to snap. Then I can deleteo my rectangle. Okay, so that's great. That's kind of moved my bottom edge up where I want it. Now I want to make that panel thing happen. So I'm going to come in and measure the distance from this bottom edge up to this inset panel. 2 foot 3 3/8. So we're going to say 2 foot 3 1/2. Again, I'm rounding to 1/2 inches because I like my carpenters. So 2 foot 3 1/2. We're going to take a rectangle and we want it to be this wide. So I'm just snapping to that width. And then I'm going to say 4 inches, which is how tall I want it. I'm going to just create that rectangle, pick her up, move her down to the bottom center, right? And then I want 2 foot 3 1/2. So then I'm going to use my move command, have no X offset, and have 2 foot 3 1/2 as my height. Okay. So now it's up there in the middle. That's pretty nice. I do want to add it to this outside shape, but I haven't actually chopped the center out yet, right? So I still have these kind of 2 separate pieces and I really want it to be a surface. So I'm going to go ahead and do my clip surface game first. So I'll come in here, clip surface. So now I don't need this middle part. Do I need it? No, I don't. I'm going to teach you something else. I don't need it. So I'm going to come in here, grab these 2 things, and then I can add surface in order to get that shape where we wanted it to be, okay? So now I do still want those panels to be shapes. I'm going to come and grab my rectangle tool, or I'll use keyboard shortcut 4 to draw the bottom panel. And then for the top panel, we're going to learn one more tool, and that's going to be the Polyline Tool. So a Polyline Tool is really great. It lets you draw straight lines with curved lines. You can kind of see the shape has pointy bits and curvy bits, and it will then create that all into one surface. And we'll use it more again later too. So we're going to start at this bottom corner, and we're going to start in the straight line mode. And then, we got to a circle. So I'm going to use the same sort of points on arcs mode. You can read about all of these modes up here, but point on arc is generally for me the most consistently correct. So I'm going to just click that point on arc mode, and it's going to generate the arc in 3 clicks, right? So the first click has already happened. The second one is going to be at the top of the arc. The third one is going to be over here. So now I have that arc, and then I can switch back into the straight line mode. When I click, and I'm snapping, so I will be clicking in exactly the same spot where I started, I now have a filled polygon shape of that interior panel. So I think all I really need to finish it off is going to be another little 3/4 piece of trim, 3/4 inch pieces of trim, or a 1/2 inch piece of trim inside of each of these, and that's back to my friend the offset tool. Let's do a 1/2 inch piece just to, like, you know, make it different, right? Give it a little bit of a different dimension. Again, while I have my offset tool picked up already, I can hold command and I can choose a different object to offset from, so I don't have to switch back and forth to my cursor, to my offset tool, to my cursor, to my offset tool. Great, okay. So that is basic shape, right? Basic trim situation going all the way around. I'm going to let you come back in and figure out the lights on the sides, right? Figure out how you would replicate that panel situation for these smaller ones, right? You have some different shapes here, so it might be about chopping things up separately or reshaping stuff once you have it, creating guides, using rectangles, adding surfaces or clipping surfaces to get the shapes that you want all created out of vectors. So I'll have you work on that, and then hopefully you can get to the point where you have all of your windows filled in on this side, and you can select that whole light and mirror it across to the other side so that you have that nice symmetrical piece, and then also come in and draw a cute little door handle, right? Using all of your powers of drafting. So that is as far as we're going to go for this for now. And we'll come back and talk about plating and export in the next video.